allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Thompson.
Here.
Thompson here. Carr.
Here.
Carr here. Pittman.
Here.
Pittman here. Slattery.
Here.
Slattery here. Poulos. Poulos absent. Johnson. Johnson absent. Frausto. Frausto absent. Volato.
Here.
Volato here. Vieta.
Here.
Vieta here. Rita.
Here.
Rita here. Donahue.
Here.
Donahue here. Hawley.
Here.
Hawley here. Farnwell.
Here.
Farnwell here. Osling.
Here.
Osling here. 11 present.
Thank you very much. We'll follow the agenda. Number 1 is this presentation of the water rate analysis. Meyer.
Good evening, and thanks for having me out. I'm here to present to you some of the findings we've had in the finance office regarding the status of the water fund and the water rates. I'm going to go through everything. Please, if you could hold any questions till the end. I want everyone to just kind of keep an open mind right now. I realize there's been discussion on this topic already. Let's take a look at the whole presentation, and then we can discuss things from there. I want to say that a lot of this is going to be review for the Finance Committee. Those on the Finance Committee have already seen this presentation. It has some minor tweaks to it because we have newer data. The discussion took place a month or two ago, and so when we have new data, we've updated some of the numbers, but they're very much similar to what you've seen before. I believe you all have paper copies of the presentation in front of you. It'll be up on the screen, but you can follow along on the paper copies as well. I want to say also that the finance staff has done a great job in helping us out, getting numbers together and whatnot. Lori, Pam, Julianne, they've all helped out, and they're doing a great job running the finance department. I didn't actually introduce myself. My name is Dave Meyer. You've all seen me before. I'm the CPA that's been helping out in the finance department over the past few months. So what I'd like to do first is kind of go through where we stand and where we stood with cash, our cash position of the water fund and the general fund. That'll be on the slide when I click over. And the cash, the water and the general fund, or corporate fund if you will, what I'm going to show you is the unrestricted cash. So the general fund actually has some additional cash in it, but that can't be used for anything but specific grant projects. So we're talking about the money that can be used for general operations. So the water fund, that money can be used for general operations of the city. If you have a surplus, you can choose to do with it whatever you want. And the general fund, that can be used to pay bills, to operate the city. So we're kind of going to look at those sort of together, if you will. So I'm going to click over. And there you see, this is the days of cash on hand. And what it does, it's going to compare the last 3 fiscal years, okay? Where did we stand at December 31st, 2014, 2015, and then also 2016? And I realize that a lot of people, a lot of citizens, maybe even business owners, they operate on a weekly basis. They got to have just enough money to pay their bills. They don't have any excess. And that's normal for a lot of citizens to do that, to operate that way in their own personal lives. But a city government cannot operate that way. We have to have some reserve money in order to pay our bills. We have liabilities out there, and then we have unexpected things that happen. Emergencies come up, We need more money than we have. We got to have some sort of a surplus on hand. And at the bottom of the slide there, it says GFOA recommendations. And GFOA, that's the Government Finance Officers Association. They don't have any legal authority, but they're out there to assist governments when they have questions. How should I run my government? What kind of money should I have on hand? They know a lot about governments, and they offer a lot of suggestions to governments on how to run. And their suggestion for a corporate fund is to have approximately, at a minimum, 60 days of cash on hand. So 60 days worth of expenditures. So basically like 2 months. So if you took, how much are we going to spend in one given year, and we divided that by 6, that's about how much we would need to have on hand at any given point in time. And then for a water fund, and we're talking just operating here right now, operating purposes, 45 days of cash on hand. That's their recommendation. So I took a look and said, well, what did we actually have? And if you look at the middle of the slide, you see our unrestricted cash position. In 2014, the corporate fund had $12,844. The water fund had $474,000. Well, what did that mean? How many days was that? If you go to the first segment, just under the dates there, you'll see the corporate fund had 0.3. That's not even 1 day, okay? Not even 1 day of operating cash on hand. We had $12,000 in the bank. That wasn't even enough to pay 1 day's bills. The water fund had about 40 days, 39.9. Combined together, they had just over a week, Just over a week of cash on hand. The recommended amounts, if we go up by the GFOA for that year, we should have had about 2.6 million in the corporate fund, not 12,000, We were woefully below where we should have been. The water fund was below where it should have been too. And when I say operating, I'm talking about just to run the water fund operations. I'm not even talking about having a surplus on hand to fund capital projects as needed. Obviously, you know Blue Island is one of the older suburbs of Chicago, and we've got some old infrastructure, some old water lines and sewer lines crumbling that need attention. They need repair. And so when an emergency comes up, we got to be able to pay for that repair, but we don't have the reserves to do that. I'm going to move now to 2015. 2015, we actually had a little bit more in the water fund. We had $953,000 at the end of the year, and the corporate fund had $246,000. Combined, we had about 3 weeks, 21 days. We were better off in 14 than we were in 15, but again, combined, we were under where we needed to be. And then at the end of 2016, you can see the numbers there. The corporate fund actually showed some improvement. The water fund went down. There was a decision to move some salary money that was being paid out of the corporate fund to the water fund, and rightfully so. These folks are working out of the water fund, and their expenses should be there, and so those were moved over in 15 to 16. So that's kind of why the water fund went down, and the corporate fund went up in cash at the end of the year. But again, if you look, we only had 17.7 days of cash on hand, and again, well below where we really need to be to fund our operations. And these slides don't even include the tax anticipation warrants that we had outstanding, We had to borrow money for operations purposes against our future tax receipts. So at the end of 2016, at the end of 2015, we owed $500,000. At the end of 2014, we owed $1 million. So those monies get paid back when we get our property tax money, but then we had to re-borrow near the end of the year. So again, if you just took those figures and knocked another $500,000 off, you can see we were even worse off than what this slide is showing. So this is where we are. The most recent end of the year, December 31st, 2016. I'm going to click into the next slide, and the next slide shows the water rate history. So this is a history of rates that the city of Chicago has charged us, and then what we in turn charge our citizens. And it shows 11 years worth, so we can see a 10-year change. And back in 2007, the Chicago rate was $1.33 per 1,000 gallons. And over the years, they've had some increases. And so we kept up with them, with those increases for the most part. And then in a couple of years, we added on to their increase. Our costs are going up. There's inflation. And so this is just to pay for the water, but then we have other costs of the water fund, salaries, supplies, pumps, repairs, etc. Those prices have gone up as well. And if you look at that last column, the one furthest to the right, the excess change, those are the amounts that we increased our water rate by above what the city of Chicago charged us. And if you add that column up over the 10 years, we've increased our water rate above Chicago's by 62 cents. Well, that's not much, because that's only about a 9.9% increase over where we are now. 9% over 10 years, that's less than 1% a year. And inflation over that time, over that 10-year span, was about 16.5%. So we're not even keeping up with inflation. Well, with our water rate increases, don't even cover the increases in costs that have occurred in the economy. The reason 2017 is a negative 7 cents is because the city of Chicago increased their cost to us by 7 cents, and that has not yet been passed on to the citizens of Blue Island. So right now we're paying for that extra increase for everyone that took place in July. We've been paying that for the last several months on behalf of everyone. So this is just kind of where have we been. And if you look at Chicago's dollar, they started out at $1.33 and they're up to $3.88. That's close to a 200% increase. And our increase was about 85% over that whole time. And most of that went back to the city of Chicago. If we were to raise our rates the same as Chicago raised them to us, we'd be at $10.82 right now. But we're not. We're well below that. The point of this is I just want to say that we have not done a good job of increasing our rates to keep up with Chicago, and to keep up with inflation, and to keep up with general costs, and to also build a reserve. We have not done a good job of that. I'm going to click to the next slide now, and this is going to be a comparison. This slide compares our rates to some other municipalities. All of these are in 1,000 gallons. This is the rate per 1,000 gallons, and these are all cities that are in Cook County and purchasing water from the city of Chicago. And you can see we're at the bottom there, and then the rest of them are an average. And you can see one town is less than us, also. Now they have a great industrial base that we do not have, and they've got newer piping and whatnot than we have. We have a much older infrastructure than they do, and they're at $7.74 when you combine the water rate with the sewer rate. And you can see all the other communities listed here are above us. And if you took them all and averaged them, their average combined rate for water is $9.35, $2.18 for sewer, and $11.53 grand total, and we're at $8.26. So we're quite a bit below the average, $3.27 below. Again, I mean, you can pick other towns, just some are higher, some are. There might be some other ones that are less. I wasn't able to find any other ones, but there may be some out there. but for the most part, any other ones I looked at, a lot of them have different rate schedules that don't compare. They have minimums, then there's a sliding scale and whatnot, so that it's almost, you can't compare apples to apples with those other towns. But these all had straight rates just like we do. So that's why they're up here on the slide. But as you can see, we're below just about everyone, and we are less than the average. The next slide, I'm going to show why do we need some of this money? Why do we need a reserve? What would we do with such money? Now, I'm not going to say we're going to do any of these specifically, but these are some of the projects that are out there that are going to need to be done at some point. Okay, we're going to have to repaint the water tower. That repainting costs about $1 million or so. The water meter replacement, we have not replaced the majority of the meters in the 15 years. So some of these meters, if some of them die out, they've been replaced, but other ones have not. Okay, so the meter replacement, and again, these are estimated costs. I'm not saying we're going to do this project necessarily. These are just potential projects. Most municipalities have some sort of a radio program that reads the meters instead of having a team of employees go out and read every single meter each month. It's done by radio, and that cuts down on that cost of having people go out and read the meters physically. Those employees can be used in other areas rather than spending their time reading meters. That would be something down the line. There's a couple of dead-end sections that need to be looped together. They're at an end of a run, and they should be connected, and they're not. Those should be done. And then there's also, I kind of mentioned this earlier, aging infrastructure. We've got at least $1.5 million and probably more of water mains and sewer lines that need replacing. So those are, again, just some potential projects. Why do we need money above and beyond what we have to operate? It's because these kinds of costs are going to present themselves at some point in the future. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide now. And this is where looking at where we are today and what we've taken in for 2017 so far and the expenses yet to be incurred, we anticipate the cash to go down by about $650,000 or so. And then we projected that into the next several years. If we continue operating the way we are now, without a rate increase, we're gonna be in the negative of about $620,000 each of those years going forward. That's what we're projecting based on what we know today, the revenues that we have, and the expenses that we have. So this kind of shows you where we're headed if we do nothing. This is if we don't raise our rates whatsoever, the cash of the water fund is going to continue to ebb. The next, I'm going to move now to the next slide, and the next couple of slides are going to be, well, what if we did something? What if we raised the water rate? What would that do to our cash position? How would that look? How would our rates look compared to the average that we looked at before? And the first one we're going to do is if we did a 12% increase. If we raised rates 12%, what would that mean? And you can see, and when I say sewer rate remains 20% of water rate, that's the way you've been operating all along right now. Whatever the water rate is, your sewer rate is 20% of that rate. And we kind of saw that in one of the earlier slides. So this is almost like almost to get us to almost break even. If we did a 12% increase, we'd have we'd still lose about 50,000 or so, but almost break even with a 12% increase. And you'd see that our rate would end up being $771 for water, sewer would be at $159 or $155, which is 20% of the water, and our combined rate would be $926. And we'd still be below the average, though, by $2.27. So this is one possible, hey, if we did just enough to get us maybe to break even for each year, okay? The next, and we just kind of went up in increments of 6%. We said, well, what if we increase it 18% rather than 12%? And there doesn't have to be any magic number here. These are just examples of how the cash would change, how much more money this would give us if we raised the rates by this percent. We could easily said 17% or 19.5 or whatever the number is, okay? These slides just kind of give you some idea of where we would end up if we were to raise the rates by this much. So 18%, and I'm going to get into it in a minute. I'm going to get into what does that mean to the regular customer and what is their bill going to look like. So I'll get to that in a second. But again, here we would actually show some positive cash flow, about 2.25 or 225,000 thereabouts, 250,000 if we raised them 18%. Our combined rate would go up to 975. We'd still be below the average, but this would give us some actual positive cash flow in the water fund at 18%. And we can come back to any of these slides. I'm going to fast forward a little bit here now to 24%. This is if the rates went up 24%. This would give us about $500,000 of extra money a year to start looking towards doing some of those projects. Again, our rate right now was combined rate was $8.36. Now we're up to $10.24, still below the average of what we saw on the other slide. But this would provide us with an extra $500,000 a year towards doing some projects, some much needed projects. The next slide is going to go to 30%, and this would give us close to $800,000 in 2018, a little over $800,000 in 19 and 20. Again, our rate now, our combined rate would be $10.73, and again, still below the average, but this would give us some more meaningful money here. A 30% increase in water rates, and with the sewer rate remaining at 20%. I'm going to go to one more slide on this. And this is the 30% rate increase, and this is if we, instead of the sewer rate being 20% of the water rate, now we're saying, let's just say we made it 30% of the water rate. And this would actually give us some meaningful money to do some projects with, about $1.3 million a year. And now you see our combined rate, on the left of the slide there, the combined rate for Blue Island will be up to 1162, which is almost right in just a shade over the average of the other towns. So again, this just points out there's one, it's an option, okay? This kind of gives you a little bit of a feel. What if we did this? Well, here's what 30 and 30 would do for us. It would give us some meaningful money, over $1 million a year, to start putting into some of the projects that are out there and that are coming up. Well, what does all this mean to the average citizen? Okay, so this next slide. Okay, this is the sample monthly utility bill at the proposed rates, and the trash is included in this as well. Okay, so this is your whole bill. Okay, when you get your bill, it's got the water, it's got the sewer, and it's got the garbage component. And if you're using 2,000 gallons, right now, your bill is $42.56. If you use 6,000 gallons, if you go over towards the middle, the third column of numbers there, you see your current bill is $75.60. And if you're using 10,000 gallons, which is quite a bit, this is per month, your bill is over $100. So what would happen if we raised it to 12%? You'd see in the 12% rate increase line, your total bill would go up by $2 if you're using 2,000 gallons. It would go up by $6 if you're using 6,000 gallons. It would go up by $10 if you're using 10,000 gallons. So about $1 really for every extra 1,000 gallons that you're using. And then you can see that what does the 18% rate increase do to us? What does the 24% rate increase? And then all the way down to the bottom one, you see where the 30, if you're using 2,000 gallons, and we did 30% increase with the increase to the sewer rate, that bill, instead of $42.56, would be up to $49.28. So $6, a little over $6 a month would be what the result is there. For those who are using 2,000 gallons. Obviously, 6,000 gallons, let's just say that's more like a family of however many people, 4 or 5 people, let's just say. You could, again, everyone uses different amounts of water. Some people do more laundry than others.
Quiet in the audience, please.
But this is this just shows you what would happen at each level. And again, if you needed more information, we could say, well, what if we used 4,000 gallons? You know, it would crowd the slide too much, so this just kind of gives you an idea of what would happen here. And I'll go to one more slide, and the next one, this is non-senior, okay? If you're not a senior, this is what your bill looks like. If you're a senior, you actually get a discount. Your sewer rate is half, and your garbage rate is lower as well. So again, same slide with different results because of being a senior. So at the 2,000 gallon level, the senior's at $31.09, and at the highest of the slides we looked at, their bill would go up by $5.42. And similarly, if you're using, I'm not sure how many seniors are using the 10,000 gallons, but I guess it's possible. They would go from, say, $91.65 up to $118. So you can kind of see this is what happens to a bill as the different rates get increased by different percentages. And that was the last slide I had. And this is the same, again, the same information that was discussed with the Finance Committee. And they had several questions. We worked through those questions. And so I guess I'll open it up to you for any questions you might have of me right now.
Get the lights, please. And open it up to the Alderman. Discussion among the Alderman. Alderman Bellato, go ahead.
I just have a question. In any of this research, do we have what's the average water usage for a single-family household in town? So we'll compare how realistic the numbers are?
Okay, from what I'm told, it's about the 6,000 gallons.
No. I had 10 people at my house, and it was never more than 10.
What you consider
No, we have no discussion with the public. You have your chance. This is discussion amongst the Alderman, and we'll open up to the public comment. Please, thank you. Go ahead, Alderman.
I'll just clarify my stance. I just said single-family house, not saying how many people just
Yeah.
house. You said not a 2-flat or a 4-flat. I'm just asking if a single-family house, just saying the average is around 6,000.
Roughly, yeah. I mean, it'll change by the season and whatnot as well.
Alderman Hart, go ahead.
Hi, Dave, how are you?
Hi.
When we were elected 4 years ago, we instituted a water rate increase, and we were told that this water rate increase was going to take care of everything, and that the only increases going forward were going to be reflective of what the city of Chicago increased ours. Now, I know you weren't around back then, but I also know that you've kind of looked into what has happened, and can you explain where the numbers went awry?
Well, yeah, let's kind of go back to the slide where we had increases. Okay, so I would think, if I'm getting you right here, are you talking about the increase in 2014?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was the 50-cent increase.
Right.
When you say fix everything, I guess back then, if we raised the rate 50 cents, that probably would have generated about $300,000, $350,000 maybe of additional revenue, which would certainly not be enough to fix everything.
It actually looks like we raised the rate almost $1.
Well, yeah, but if you think about it though, almost all of that went, or almost half of that went to Chicago. So that, right away, they're getting 43 cents of that increase. We only got 50 cents of that. And again, that would only produce roughly maybe 350,000 of additional revenue. So that really wouldn't be something that would give you additional money to do projects at that time. I'm not sure of the calculations, maybe the calculations were wrong at that time, but certainly that increase probably should have been about $3 and not just 50 cents.
Any other questions?
I don't want to be the only one asking questions. When you say that money was, certain expenses were transferred to the water department as opposed to being paid out of the corporate fund, are you talking about water department employees' salaries that were paid from the corporate fund and were now being paid from the water fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from the Alderman?
Thank you, Mayor. What, of the options presented, Mayor, what option do you recommend we go with?
Really, if there is any, graduals.
What percentage would you start us at gradually?
Depends on what we're gonna do. How much of investment in infrastructure we want to do in the city.
So it's in your opinion, right now, what would you think we need to do to
Easy
invest?
to do, the hard decision? I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's either the 18 or the 24, but not the 30.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And then when you said gradually, how would you implement that? If you want to do 24% gradually, what would
That would
you?
depend on the finance committee, what all of you aldermen will agree to as to what would be reasonable for the public.
So 24% is the number you would recommend the council?
Either 18 or 24.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I appreciate the input, it's helpful to hear some numbers. I have a little bit of a different point of view, which is probably not going to be that popular, but the city not only needs repairs to its water infrastructure, but certainly during the most recent campaign, the question was asked by me many times, what would you like to see improved in Blue Island? And the answer, like 95% of the time, was the streets. And if I understand it, street repairs, if we were to just try to get up to even over the next 10 years, we'd need $1.5 million, $2 million a year that we don't have. And that money's not coming from anywhere else. There's no grants these days, the state's broke. We all cry about all this stuff, but that's a fact. It's just the way it is. So if we want to be able to do the things to the water system that absolutely have to be done, and we want better streets, then I'm frankly in favor of the 30 and 30. I know it will be difficult on some people, and we talked in the finance committee about that quite a bit. And there is recognition that there will need to be efforts made to reach out to folks who can't do this and help them. We don't want people leaving Blue Island or being driven broke. But I do think that most people in Blue Island can afford this. And like I say, you've got to look at the choice. Do you want better streets? Do you want a better water system, safe, good water system? It's going to have to be paid for. I wish it wasn't true, but I don't see, and I think Dave's done a fantastic job of making a very clear and useful presentation. It's very helpful to the finance committee, because this is an issue nobody wants to talk about, but we have to. So, that's how I feel about it.
I'm just a little confused, maybe some clarification. How we got here. We were told, when I ran, I was told everything, no rates were gonna be increased. We went with a new garbage company, I'm gonna say, new garbage company in June, saying no rates were gonna increase, and now we're here. I'd like to know, and I'm sure the constituents would like to know, whose fault is this?
Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but if you look at the slide we're on right now, we should have been raising the rates more than what we raised them, and we didn't do that. And so we've been living paycheck to paycheck, if you will. And that's not how we can operate a city. So I get it. Citizens can live paycheck to paycheck, but again, I said at the very beginning, city government cannot. So you did not have the reserves. We kind of talked about the days of cash on hand. That's what you had. And you also borrowed against your future taxes. So over the years, these rates should have been increasing each year, but they weren't. There's a lot of villages, it's 5% a year, every year, that's what it is. And we have not been doing that.
And, you know, that would have obviously been an easier pill to swallow than trying to do it right now with 30%. Again, and, you know, we don't have to come out and say, but I'd like to, you know, whose fault this is.
Well, I would have to say it was everyone's fault, you know, for not recognizing this. So I guess the previous finance person should have been explaining to the board, hey, we don't have enough money.
Sure.
And then that would have been brought to the attention of the board, and you probably would have done something then.
Yeah.
But that wasn't done. And that's why I'm here tonight, because I want to let you know this is where we are, and something needs to be done about it.
When I was on the finance committee, we were given reports that the fund was in great shape. So I don't understand.
When we were on the first slide, the days of cash on hand, the water fund actually had 900,000 or whatever, and then the next year, as I mentioned, some of the costs that the water fund should have been paying all along were rightfully moved over from the general fund to the water fund, and then your water bill. I don't know where the city of Chicago was on it, but the bill was underestimated for that next year. And so when you thought you were going to have all these reserves, you really weren't.
Thank you, Mayor. Were there any other, besides this, I know there's some discrepancies here, were there any other discrepancies in the finance department that, say, a month from now, you're going to come and say, oh, hey, this is going on, or we found this? Was there anything you found when you came in, I believe it was last February, March timeframe, that was unusual for a finance department to be operating like?
There was a couple of items, yes. And I think those have been shared with the finance committee, not in writing necessarily, but verbally, that involved bank reconciliations not being performed correctly. It also involved having approved checks not being mailed out. They were approved, they were cut, but they were sitting in the drawer. So if you were under the impression that those checks were paid physically, they had not been. So those were two of the most glaring, if you will, items that we noted when we came in.
And so the bank reconciliation for the city's similar to we would do, or I would do at home with my checkbook. I'd write my mortgage check, send it out, back to clear to my checkbook, and so it doesn't look like I had more money, and that wasn't happening.
It wasn't happening completely, as thoroughly as you would expect it to happen. It was being done somewhat, but not completely.
Excuse me, Ms. Mike. Just so you know, I know we're kind of putting you on the spot, but we know you were not the one who was here at the time. So we're just trying to get some information.
Right, I understand.
Okay. I don't want you to necessarily have to feel defensive. We just want to figure out what's going on.
No, yeah, I just want to be forthcoming, and I want you to know where we are, so you can make an informed decision.
Alderman Blau.
Thank you, Mayor. I sat on the finance committee, and I just think we just mentioned checks. They mentioned, the previous finance director said every check that was cut was sent out and paid immediately. So you're saying that's not true?
That's correct. That is not true.
We were given wrong information at finance.
If that's what you were told, then you were told you were given wrong information, yes.
Anyone else? Alderman Thompson?
Mr. Meyer, will this information not be discovered during the auditing?
Yeah.
We had an auditor that was auditing in the city of Blue Island. This would not have been discovered then.
I don't know what procedures the auditors do. I can't speak for them, so. Yeah, we're waiting to get the audit report from the auditors for 2016, and so once that becomes available, we'll see what their comments are. But they were aware of the bank reconciliation not being done. Yes. And they were also aware that the checks were in the drawer, but I don't know if they made any formal comment on that or not.
I can understand that additional money is needed for these projects that are listed. Everyone that I have talked to, everyone that has talked to me, myself included, cannot afford a 30% water increase.
Any other comments from the audience?
I know it is a lot of money, and my water bill would be affected a lot as well. These future expenses that are coming up are a lot. We also had a sewer almost cave-in on 127th Street, and that took a large amount of funds. It actually came out of, I believe, the Business Development District, because it's part of the district, because we really didn't have the funds in the water fund or the corporate fund to cover those large expenses. It did come up when we were doing, I believe, the scoping of the sewers, which was also part of the Business Development District. And that's what brought that to light. But there are a lot of expenses. If something major happens to the water main, we really are in a bind. We could get a tax anticipation warrant, but a lot of times at the end of the year, that's what we need to just pay salaries at the end of the year to make it through. I know when we took over, or when I was elected, the city had over $1 million in losses for each of at least the previous 10 years. And that's a lot of money that had been used and not replaced over the years. And it was really scary that first December, because we really had no idea where we were going to pay the salaries. And we also had to make some very tough decisions and do a lot of cuts. And the Finance Committee worked really hard on that the first year or two, I think. And it's hard. We are down to what I feel is pretty much bare minimum as far as personnel is concerned. I don't feel that everything is being done as well as I would like to see it done. I mean, and a lot of that is because we either don't have the equipment that's working right, or we don't have the personnel to be able to do it. I would like to say that if we do an increase, I think we need an increase in the water fund of some sort. I would like to see it be a little bit more gradual. I would have liked to have seen a 5% increase every year and just set that up, and it would have been nice to set that up before. It would not hurt as much. Right now, we are in a pretty bad situation. However, I would like to see that if we do a larger increase, that a reserve fund be set up for at least 75% of this money, so that it's only used for and some of these projects that we have here, so that we can actually start accumulating the money and use it in case of an emergency. Say like 75% of the money goes in the reserve fund. We do need some more operating funds, I think, but we're looking at having to repaint the water tower is $1 million plus. The water meter replacement, we need to get a little bit more information about how many meters and how much that's going to cost and get a little bit better numbers. But that's also not a small amount of money. And then also there was something else. The water meter radio installation kind of is expensive, but in the end, it is right. It does free up. I don't know how many people they got reading meters. 5 people reading meters every month. So that would free up some people to do some of this other stuff that we need done too. You know, I'm not an expert on any of this, but looping dead end water sewer sections, I don't know what that means. But it's expensive. And then the water main sewer replacement, that is just something that's kind of ongoing. We have a really old system. We all see and live day to day and know what ignoring the streets and letting the infrastructure go to help pay the bills and not replace the money coming in does to our streets. The water system, you need water to live, and if the water system, if the water main goes down and we're not able to get financing or some kind of funding, and entire parts of the city are without water or have bad water, I mean, look at Flint, Michigan, look at any number of places. It's just not good. So I know it hurts, and I know a lot of people are running paycheck to paycheck. And this, when we took over, the city had a lot more money sitting, or a lot more checks that were written sitting in the desk, not being mailed out. And we did make some great strides to try and bring that under control a lot more, but apparently we need to do more.
Mr. Meyer, when did you present this to the Finance Committee?
I believe it was in July.
Okay. And it's September 27th. We tried to approve it, or it was going to try to be approved by City Council. If there was checks in the drawers and money was wherever and 5% should have been increased, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong saying this, but this should have been brought to the public before City Council. You know, after the Finance Committee met, there should have been a public hearing set up that week or the week after. This is affecting a lot of people. You know, this is serious, obviously, and the fact that, you know, you're sitting there telling us, hey, the books basically were balanced and there was checks processed through but not mailed out, then, you know, the public has the right to know that. So besides hearing it at a city council meeting where we're, you know, it's being expected to be approved.
Alderman, I just would like to clarify a little bit the timing of how that happened. I think you're right, the date he first presented in July, there were one or maybe, I think, 2 subsequent meetings in finance where we discussed this back and forth. So that took us into August. We did absolutely want this to be presented to the public and not go to the city council right away. And then, of course, Labor Day kind of intervened. So I think it just to clarify how long it took to go through finance committee, because we had quite a bit of discussion about it. And then there was the delay because it got put on the agenda and it shouldn't have been. And, so here we are. But I understand your concerns, but that's kind of what happened. Is our best Republican call it?
The first presentation that we got on this did not have a lot of this information in it. And a lot of this information came either in the subsequent meeting and then it was 3 meetings it was talked about. And then there was 1 meeting where it wasn't talked about, and then it was put on the last agenda. So Dave worked really hard with the finance department to put together and answer our questions and put together a better presentation. This is what we felt. We all wanted to go to everybody, all the aldermen, well before it even got on the agenda, and it didn't happen in that direction. But the finance committee was very certain that this is what we wanted everyone to have before going to any kind of discussion. But we also did want to have a meeting of the whole. We all pushed for that, and we also wanted to have a way to inform the public as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, since you make the appointments, and you appointed the past finance director to, I think, maybe 3 times, do you have any comments about your appointment, hiding checks in his drawer and not balancing the books and any other discrepancies? He is your appointment, so. I didn't make the appointment of the past finance director, so he wasn't my employee, he's your employee.
Everybody's employed.
You're the leader, the captain of the ship.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure how many other aldermen have questions, but I wanted to say something before we go to public session. At yesterday's meeting, I felt that, bottom line, we're all elected officials here. We're elected by the people, and there's respect to the office. Regardless how emotions, you leave them at the door, it doesn't have to get personal. And I felt there were some words spoken yesterday that were very unprofessional, inflammatory, that shouldn't be happening at City Council. They can happen out there, but they shouldn't happen here. Everybody should have opportunity to listen and respond without being personal in their attacks. And I felt tonight, so far, it's been held pretty good. Mayor, please, yesterday, I needed somebody to step in. And I feel that the mayor or the chair shouldn't have to do that. All the like I said, you are our captain of the ship. Everything comes out, goes through, has to come through your office.
Correct.
All right. I just had to say that. I also want to state my opinion on, regardless of what happens tonight, has to be another meeting. Give the public an opportunity.
In fact, I think there should be 2 more meetings, or more, whatever the public wants.
I would just state on the record that I'm in favor of another meeting. I'm sure most all of them probably agree that we need another meeting. Because I see probably some people couldn't make it. And even if it's at the next city council, just for discussion. Since we're already here anyway.
So the public knows it's on the agenda. No decisions coming today. It's just for information, not only for the alderman, the presentation by Mr. Meyer, but also comments, public comments from all of you. That's why we're here. And as many meetings that the public wants, we'll have them. Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
I also wanted to bring up that when we raised the rate in 2015, I thought that when we all met, that we had decided to raise the rate along with the city of Chicago. When they raised their rate, we would raise ours. I thought it was either 3 or 5%. I thought it was 3%, because I remember there was a lot of discussion about it. Do any of you remember that? So I don't understand. Right? So we had already decided on that in 2015.
I just want to ask a question that I already know the answer to, but I want the answer from either the mayor or what happened to our previous finance director? How did he leave this position?
He found another position in another city.
He resigned. Leaving those checks in the drawer and amongst other discrepancies. I sat on the finance committee, and we can only go off the information that we hire our professionals to do. The administration, he was here prior to any of us taking office. I think most of the city council wasn't here, he was already employed. So as I sat there on the finance committee, along with my co-alderman, we ask questions, we expect not to be lied to. And this is a shock to me because he seemed to know what he was talking about. I say that.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Alderman Carr?
I have a question about the senior utility rate. I don't know. maybe the clerk can answer. It's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, so you can clarify it for me and for the people here. They only get the senior rate if their water usage is below.
They get a senior trash rate that is lower than the single-family home, and they get a lower minimum of 1,000 gallons than a 2,000 gallons minimum.
What does that mean as far as their bill goes?
Well, everyone to have service to their house, the way the bill was previously was a 2,000 gallon minimum. So if the people, like if someone goes to Florida, they're still paying 2,000 gallons a month. If they are a senior, it's 1,000 gallons a month now. So it doesn't kick in until.
Okay.
And there's
So let's just say that a senior, which I doubt they would, but let's just say that they would use 6,000 gallons of water. Do they get a discounted rate on the water?
No, they have the discounted trash rate.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Alderman?
I just wanted to make a comment as well. Obviously, when you look at numbers here, as elected officials, we have some tough decisions to make. And us not doing anything about it, we be responsible on our half as well. I am in favor for what I'm pretty sure the rest of the council is agreeing with, and what Alderman Bellagio stated as far as having at least 2 more public hearing meetings, because not everybody is able to make today's meeting, and I as well, I'm going to have some public forums in my ward, because I really want to hear feedback from residents here tonight, and I want to hear back from my constituents. But the 2 other comments I want to make is, although I haven't made a decision myself personally as far as how I feel, but I just think 30% is ridiculous, and I'm not even looking at that. And my other comment is, I think we owe it to our residents that whatever change that we do, that we put a plan in place. Any resident here goes to the bank and they ask for a loan, whatever they want to do, a rehab loan, or the banks want to know what are you going to do with that money, where's it going. So for us to say, obviously we do need a more cash at hand with the function of the city, and we want to do infrastructure improvements. I think we owe it to our residents that if we do make an increase, that here's the plan we have in place. This is what we are going to do, and we're committed to doing this. Rather than just a blank check saying, we need more money, thank you, make sure you pay your water bill on time.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to kind of echo what Alderman Foster said, what Alderman Hawley said. I do agree that whatever we do, the idea of a restricted fund is a very good idea, or something so that, we show that the money's not just going to flow out of the city.
Again, Mayor, I'm sorry, what was your recommendation for the city council?
18 or 24, if at all. Go ahead, Alderman.
Hey, I'm sorry, one more thing. I would like to request, I know you created this chart here for 2,000, 6,000, 10,000, just for visual on the screen. If we get a little bit more granular, I know you mentioned 6,000 is average household usage. I think that single family home, if you're using 6,000 gallons, you're not being conservative, you're being very wasteful. And in my household, if I go over 2,000, that's leaving the water running all the time. But I would like to see, just so the residents can get a more clear figure, hey, this is what I use, I want to know what's my impact. I would like to request that, just a more granular scale.
If I might just again echo, I think it's a great point. It'd be good for everyone to see what their costs are, and I know the number 30%, 24%, whatever's being thrown around, and because it's fact. But also, if they just what it actually would have, what the effect would actually be on you in dollars and cents. And I just think it's logical to look at those numbers and then make a determination. Does it make sense? You know, if my water bill goes up $8 a month, is it worth it? And I afford it, it goes up 12, whatever. Those are the numbers that really matter to people, not percentages.
Any other comments before I open up for public comment? Alderman Boyd.
Mr. Mayor, I want to clarify again, you said it a couple of different times. You know more information than all of us probably with when it comes to this. I just got this information tonight. Based on what you know, and I got to spend more time on this, you're saying between 18 and 24, would you side one way or the other? What are you feeling heavily on? It helped me make a decision.
I'm going to go 18.
You're saying 18?
Any other comments? Now I'll open up for public. Oh, Alderman, go ahead.
No, I have a question, so to ask, could we open up the public
Yes,
so
yes.
we could hear what the
Yes.
public has to say?
Again, the procedure is, again, we have a lot of people, we're going to take whoever wants to come up. We try to limit everyone to 4 minutes. Okay, we're going to address it, we're going to take notes, I'm going to take notes. But you're not going to get any response from us. Again, it's just they hear you out, it's what's out there. Okay? Yeah, and they address me, you don't address me.
Thank you, Dave.
It comes to me.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll need your name and address, just come on up, one by one. I need your name and address at the podium.
My name is Marsha Lee, 2262 120th Place. I don't have a comment, I have a question. I'd like to hear what my Alderman, Jan Osling, has to say in reference to this.
No, nothing's going to each alderman. It's coming directly to us. We'll make the notation that thus you want a response sometime in the near future. Thank you very much. Name and address, please.
Marcia Stone, 12761 Sacramento. I have just a couple of questions, Mayor. Will street repairs be included in these plans for this?
Again, I'm just taking down the information that we're going to address.
All right. I would like to know how much is there in outstanding water bills and what is being done to collect that? That's revenue we should be getting. What is the percentage of water loss in the city that we're paying money for but not getting the money back? Lastly, I just think that Kevin Donahue should be ashamed of himself for disrespecting the office of the mayor. Thank you.
Name and address.
Good evening. My name is Rose Dangle. My address is 3040 141st Street. I just moved here 2 months ago.
From where, if I may ask?
Pardon?
From where, if I may ask?
From Midlothian.
Okay.
And in Midlothian, I know that they had tacked on a $30 a quarter charge to each of the residents to pay for the infrastructure of what we're talking about here. So I don't have a problem with it going up a few dollars, but a lot of us, a lot of people can't afford it. My question is this, I didn't catch, Nancy? And just a question. You had stated that in 2015...
You have to address it directly to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
Excuse me, Mayor. Nancy had stated a point that back in 2015 that there was a vote that said that they were going to raise the water 5%. I'm assuming that it should have been raised 5% a year. I'm just making a statement that if that was the case, then something fell through the cracks that should have kept going based on the information she says that was out there. I wasn't a resident, I want to make that point. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is when I hear water, I hear water. I don't hear water, sewer, and garbage. So when I hear 18% and I hear the word water, why isn't it just the water that we're addressing? I know that I just moved here and I heard that through whatever page, Blue Island Happenings, I guess, that the garbage contract was just redone with somebody, that it shouldn't go up for a while. So when I hear water, I'm expecting 18% on water. Maybe sewer too, because it kind of runs hand in hand. So I'm not expecting my garbage bill to go up because I understand that it just went up or went down because of a contract. So if the contract is there, why are we going to pay extra money for a contract that's already there? I'm just questioning it. And so far, I like Blue Island. I live way on the outskirts. I think I'm in Ward 1, so is my alderman here? He's not here. I'm going to have to call him. His butt should be here because of my ward. Thank you. I live at 3040 141st Street. It's a little off the path. It's close to Midlothian, so I can go visit my neighbors, my old neighbors, because I lived there for 18 years. But so far, I like it. Thank you.
Ann Spadoni, 13407 Rexford.
Yes.
I just think you guys have a lot of nerve asking for a rate increase when somebody came to this town lot and put a grocery store in, which would have brought a whole lot of revenue, and you hemmed and hawed for what, 6 months? Maybe if we had gotten the revenue, we wouldn't be raising us. Quit asking us for money. We have no more to give.
Bush 12207 Longwood Drive, double lot. I've been watching my water, the gallons, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I haven't even watered my grass this summer. But I had a situation where my water bill, I had like a high water bill, I don't want to go into personal things, but Betty was kind enough, I made arrangements, and I paid my water bill off. That's a good thing. I just wondering, well, I look at the gallons, I'm like, gallons? And I also understand too that I got my discount, you know, like for the garbage, whatever like that. So I'm just wondering, like, I didn't even water my grass this year. So I'm always a bit, you know, how many gallons was come through. But someone also said to me, maybe you have a leak in underground. I said, no, I don't think so. So I think mine is coming from a lot of showers in my house. And I tell my family, okay, you got that, here's the 10 minutes for a shower, that's it. When the water goes off. You know, so you got to do what you have to do.
Thank you very much. Name and address.
Marianne Gutierrez, 1831 York. And I just want to share a story that I kind of agreed with Alderman Pittman. My husband's on Social Security. I'm not able to qualify yet. I'm not old enough. We don't have cable. We don't have any excess bills. We live on $79 a month for groceries for the two of us. This increase is taking food out of our mouths. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that this is happening to. I realize things have to be done, but if things would have been managed by the elected officials over all the years properly, Blue Island would not be in this situation. And I'm tired of paying for politicians' mess-ups.
Bob Anti, 2448 Walnut. I have a real simple question. A lot of times I make mistakes on the simple stuff. The Chicago rate for 2017 is $3.88. The Blue Island rate is $6.88 per gallon, correct? What is the 6.88?
Mr. Meyer, would you respond to that?
50% goes back to Chicago.
Mr. Meyer,
The 388 is what the city of Chicago charges us per 1,000 gallons. And the 688 is what we charge the water rate for the
That's what I paid for 1,000?
Yes.
Okay. I've heard a lot of talk, and rightfully so, about how it's going to affect our residents. Has anyone thought about the businesses? Do they get charged the same rate? And if so, what is this going to do to Tower Car Wash? They're already competing with a pretty good car wash up in Beverly. There's a new one going in Midlothian. What's it going to do to Blue Island Beer Company? I don't know a restaurant, Maple Street, D-Mars. I don't know how much water they use. Maybe it will be minor to them. Blue Island Beer Company, successful business, brings a lot of people into town. I'm pretty sure water is a big bill for them, a big part of their costs. Thank you.
Thank you.
I need your ears.
Okay.
I can't hear good enough, you know that.
Okay.
I just need
My name is Anthony Ham.
Good, thank you.
I live at 2744 Orchard Street in Blue Island since 1983. I assist in feeding over 5,000 people a month. Many of them from Blue Island come to the food pantry where I'm at, and they are in sad shape. I live on fixed Social Security, and I live on disability because I wrecked my back saving the life of a developmentally disabled young man. I pay about a little over $200 a month for prescription medication for me and my wife. You hear me? Okay. You said that you think that everybody in Blue Island should be able to afford this. Well, you're wrong. They can't. Look at that kid over there, huh? She got to send that kid to school. She got to pay doctor bills, immunizations, everything else, insurance, probably a house payment. And he probably hasn't got a raise this year. I didn't get a raise in Social Security this year. $1 million to paint a water tower? My doctor wouldn't charge that much money. I promise you, and I want you to know my word's good. You vote for a 30% increase. I will vote against everyone who votes for that. Not only will I vote against you, I will actively campaign against you. You have my word.
My name is Carol DePace Green, and I live at 2731 Orchard Street in Blue Island. The water rate comparisons for the communities of Flossmoor, Homewood, Midlothian, Hazel Crest, Harvey wasn't included. Those are all home rule communities, and they all get their water from a third-party payer. Can you guess which one? Don't answer the question, I will. It's Harvey. Harvey is currently in trouble due to what they did with their water fund money. All meters in Blue Island have been replaced and are currently read through radios. The process of replacing those meters started in 2006 when I bought my house. That's how I heard about it. The tax levy is increased annually for the municipality of Blue Island, as you all know. And it's increased to the highest allowable limit. Every time there is positive cash flow within the city of Blue Island, there is a recommendation from the treasurer's office to remove that money and put it in the general fund so that it will reflect positive cash flow and improve the city of Blue Island's ability to get a better bond rating. $3 million was removed and reported during the 2014 audit. And we heard from the gentleman this evening that money is taken from the water fund and transferred to the general fund. We have our money for the water fund. It's in the general fund. Move it back. Yes, I'm not quite finished yet. It is recommended that you take the lead and report all cost-cutting measures that are going to be taken into consideration that include the cutting of positions, foregoing your alderman salaries and your elected official salaries. If you want the taxpayers to put their skin in the game, once again, forego your money. The other cost-cutting considerations would be line item audits. Flossmoor does them. They're fiscally sound. They have a positive cash flow. Unfortunately, we keep moving the money around. We've got checks and drawers that nobody knows about, and auditors can only audit what they're given. We need to find out what the anticipated savings will be from the closing of the 911 center. We need information regarding what the cost saving will be from the new waste disposal contract. We're not being given accurate, reliable numbers. We're not even being given the accurate, reliable amount of municipal debt. It is inappropriate and not fair to ask the taxpayers for more when you're not being honest with us. Thank you.
Margarita Humbles, 2302 West 119th Place. I have two questions. One of them is, I know you're not going to answer, but how are our water bills calculated? Because it seems that it shows that I'm being manually read by my meter, but my bill stays the same every single month. And it's estimating that I'm using 2,000 gallons of water, and I know I'm not. Second question is, who's going to be overseeing the finance committee to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Pat LaFlamme, 2617 Vermont. We just moved here, my wife Laura and I, and Polly. And my son Etienne, he's not here tonight. Nice to meet you all. Thanks. I did get a raise this year. It was 3%. Seems like the water bill could probably go up by 3%, and that'd be fair. We gotta get out of here because probably can't handle much more of this, but I just wanted to share you guys. We came here for a lot of reasons, but I got really excited about all the things that were happening here. And, a lot of excitement, some small business stuff coming up. And I started volunteering at Bios Farm, and they don't have access to water. Do you guys know about Bios Farm?
Yes. Yes. No.
Cool. Yeah, they don't have access to water, and I think it'd be really awesome if they could get that. And yeah, that's infrastructure improvement. I get it. So we got to raise the prices that we're charging for water. But I also heard a rumor that there's a golf course in town, and we pay for their water. Is that true?
Yes. Yes.
Does anybody here golf?
No.
A couple people do. So that's interesting to me. So I Bios needs water. I just wanted you guys to know. Nice to meet you all.
Your name and address.
Rogelio Garcia, I live in 2255 West 131st Place, and I've been here in Blue Island since 1976. I married here. I have 5 kids that born here, and I'm married in San Benedict, and baptized my kids in San Benedict. So I love San Benedict. And one time I have 4 kids in college, and it was tough for me. Very tough. Still, I have a lot of loans, and I want to pay, and I want to pay as soon as possible. But when these expenses that sometimes come from one side to the other one, that's tough for us. And to let you know about it, when I have 4 kids in college, I never make any complaints about the water bills. I still pay the same because this is my city. But sometimes when you guys go too far, think about the poor people. Think about the for middle class and for the poor guys like me. And sometimes we have a lot of problems, especially because we don't have enough money to buy some things for our kids. But at least we have decent clothes. And I'm a decent person. Sometimes I get in trouble, but it's like anybody else. So don't get in trouble. Support us. You have a lot of imagination, use it. That's why we are Americans.
I'll need your name and address.
I'm Sandra Phillips, 2262 West 119th Place. I have a question about finding checks in the drawer. I mean, when this happened, who looks at this? I mean, who actually makes people responsible for doing unethical things like that? And when is Blue Island going to start doing that? I've been here since 1999. We have horrible flooding, and the streets are terrible. But you know, whenever you raise money, we all come to the council meeting and we listen to you, give us justifications about why you do it. But things never get better. That needs to change.
Thank you very much. Name and address.
Good evening. My name is Ron Bloom, 2421 Walnut. Happy to be here tonight. Thank you for hosting this meeting. It's very, very important. And forums like this are so important to hear from the residents. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your leadership in pulling this together. I just have a few prepared remarks. First of all, I'm a resident of 30 years now. Seems like only yesterday in a lot of respects, but I've seen a lot. I've heard a lot, and it's interesting that this whole debate over water and infrastructure improvements and roads and alleys is always a consistent theme that we've seen over the years. So it's always been very hotly debated. You know, when we think about the importance of what we're talking about, water and sewer, right? There's nothing more important in terms of our surviving. You know, certainly public safety is important. And so this is not something that we can trivialize in terms of the importance to our community. Look at Flint, Michigan, and what's occurring out there in other areas of our country. So this is very important. And these are very trying times. You know, an increase of any sort is significant, especially in a time of increased state taxes and fees, increased healthcare costs. Ours have gone up 400%. Increased fuel prices. We all know about the money grab by Cook County on soda taxes. So that needs to be taken into account, the demands that we have day to day in preparing and being able to support our families. And there's more. And Dave, thank you for preparing the information. You know, it's interesting looking at that, and I'm not going to profess to understand it all, but I did look at a Wall Street survey that I thought was pretty recent. It said some of the highest areas in the country were paying on average about $800 a year for water. And mine is well over that today, and I don't waste water. So, you know, so again, just appreciate your recognition. You know, we work hard for our money. You know, we have families to raise. We have the future to think about. We recognize infrastructure improvements are important for our city. So I know that you gravely are looking at this, and I really appreciated some of the questions and comments of the council. So, but there are other sources that we can't just say the only place to look at is the residents. We have a very strong relationship with our state representatives. Now, people say Illinois is broke. I don't get that. Every time I go to the store, I'm paying money in state taxes, but that's another story. You know, video gaming seems to be the biggest business in town, you know, and in other areas. So all I'm saying is consider additional sources, even if they're one-time sources, as we move forward. But again, I just want to say thank you for your leadership, thank you for your service, and appreciate the time that you're spending tonight to listen to the residents.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Now make a motion for adjournment?
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Roscoe.
I wasn't gonna say anything today. I'm Rachel Roscoe, 11957 South Longwood, and I've been complaining for a couple of months, as all of you know. And I still have to bring up the fact that every time a business come here, we lose money. You have no problem about giving them a discount off of taxes. It's supposed to help the city, but when it comes to me, the people in Blue Island, you raise our taxes and our fees like it's your money, and it bothers me. Why are we paying part of Thornton's bills? They build a Thornton, why do we have to pay part of their money? Why are we paying for that golf course? This is money we losing. Sell part of the property, sell it all, rather than tax us some more, give us increases on water, you know. I chose to live in Blue Island. I was born and raised in Chicago. I have my kids here. My kids are starting families here. And I'm just not gonna sit down and let you, who's supposed to be representing us, not stick up for us, you know? Oh, you know, even after I said something, a company come here, they had 10 years of a tax break. You give them another 10 years, you know? We need to hold you guys accountable. The mayor, I like you, but you gotta start holding people accountable. If they won't do what you tell them, write them up, get them out of here, you know? They don't treat you, that's insubordination. You got people in City Hall, they're not doing what you tell them to do, put it in writing. Tell them in writing that if they don't do what you tell them, the state of Illinois, that's insubordination, put them out, you know? That's all I have to say.
Motion for adjournment? Motion by Alderman Pittman, Alderman Donahue, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you much. Good night. Thank you everyone for coming out. We will announce the second meeting in a couple months. Thank you.